Starting time. Craig, should we start?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. I'm Paul Ruskin. Craig Warmington is there as well. He'll wave. So a few rules of the game. Craig and I have got a presentation to take you through. We'll give you a break after my bit to take any questions on my bit. We'll have a bigger question and discussion session at the end. We've got more than 60 people, so my proposal is rather than leap in with questions, if you put them on the chat to me, either for my session or for Craig's, I will pick them up and either ask them if it's obvious to me or invite you to talk if it's less obvious to me how that's going to go. So that's the proposal. So good. So we're going to be talking about flight tooling, an interesting way of putting this. Here's the agenda, a little bit of an introduction. I'm going to talk about my personal workflow. I'm going to be talking a bit about how I use Autorouter and Skydemon and the GTM that is in the aeroplane, both inside controlled airspace and outside controlled airspace. And then Craig's going to be talking about flying with Garmin Pilot and flying with ForeFlight. Then we'll have, as we say, a discussion. Probably worth saying that we're not trying to be definitive in any way about this is what you should do. Rather, what we're trying to do is share our experiences and the way that we do things, and invite you to comment, invite you to suggest better ways of doing it, invite you to tell us why what we're doing is wrong. So this is very much a sharing and getting your input as well. So let's start with my bit. A little bit about me. I've been flying since I was 18 years old, courtesy of the, for the first few years, courtesy of the Air Force. I've had an instrument rating since about 1990, when I used to fly around Europe on business. Now I fly for European travel just for fun. That's when COVID lets me. I'm also an active glider pilot and instructor and tug pilot, and I spend some 4 to 6 weeks per year down in the Alps flying close to the rocks, which is quite exciting. And I've got a little over 3,000 hours across various different aircraft, about half of it's gliding, half of it's GA of various sorts. I fly a Mooney 201. Coincidentally, it's the same one that I bought into a syndicate back in 1990s to do the instrument, the European travel. And a few years ago, when I was wondering whether to bother renewing my instrument rating, I decided to have a look and see whether what had happened to my old syndicate airplane, and there was a share for sale, so I bought it. It's a bit like a grandfather's axe. It's the same airplane except for the propeller, the engine, the paint, the upholstery, and all the instrumentation. But I'm sure there are some original bits of it somewhere. It's quite well equipped. We've recently added a couple of G5s and a GFC 500 autopilot, and that makes it a really impressive piece of kit. So we've got the two G5s on the left, which work, unlike Timothy's example, very well with the GFC 500 autopilot and the GTM 750. So all those things between them really cooperate very well. Generally, I fly with an iPad mounted, not shown here, but mounted on the yoke, and that works quite well. It's connected to aircraft power, which I think is a pretty important feature, and we've put some good USB power sockets, certified ones in the airplane. We've put a semi-permanently installed pilot aware, which gives ADS-B traffic and relayed FLAM and stuff, which is quite good. And that appears on the iPad, and you get voice warnings in your headset. And we've got ADS-B out on the transponder. There's a goals weather unit in there as well, and a storm scope. So we've got some rudimentary weather avoidance systems. So actually quite a nice, albeit pretty old now, aeroplane. For the purposes of this session, we're going to be using the simulator model that I've built, which is a pretty good representation of the aircraft. And I had a few weeks recovering from hip operations, so put some effort into making it as close as I could get. And actually, this is, for training purposes, I find this really useful. The GTN 750 in it is, I think, almost an exact replica of the real thing. It uses the same code. The only thing it doesn't do well is the VNAV functionality. The two G5s aren't bad. We can connect it up to Skydemon, which is a real version of Skydemon connected properly. So we get a pretty good simulation of actually flying the real thing, and I find that tremendously useful prior to check rides and things or instrument rating renewals. If anybody wants to discuss how to do this sort of thing, I'd be happy to share. So I'm not trying to give a detailed insight into either Skydemon or the GTN. This isn't going to be an exact how-to. Rather, what I want to show is how they can work together relatively easily. And I'm going to show the personal workflow that I use to do that, because I think it's quite important that you have something that's nice and simple to use, which gets you from the planning stage through to flying without too much hassle. So let's take a little look at a couple of features of Skydemon, and I've done a recording here of my iPad to show you. So there's some little clips of video I'm going to be showing you. Let's have a little look at Skydemon. I'm not going to try and do a full introduction to Skydemon. It's a very well-known tool, but Skydemon will claim it's primarily designed for VFR, and here am I promoting it for IFR use. And I think it is a very good assistant if you're flying IFR. And that's because they put quite a lot of IFR tools in it. So first of all, we're looking at the screen here, which is showing its Vfr depiction, which means we've got a very good description of airspace, both horizontally and vertically. And that can be very useful even if you're on an IFR flight. It saved me from busting London's controlled airspace when Dutch Mill dropped me into uncontrolled airspace right before I hit the London TMA. So I was able to make use of that from that to help me there. But we have an Airways mode. If I click on the little dark blue oval towards the bottom right here, on that little stack there, I can switch to Airways mode, and we can see that we have all the IFR waypoints and routes in there. So we can plan we can put IFR waypoints into our plan on Skydemon, which is very good. Under airfields, we have the AIPs, national AIPs, top left here. So we can download those, take those with us, have all that information, and not only have the approach plates for the airfield we're going to. So take Nuremberg here. I can go to instrument plates. I can find, let's see, runway 28. Find the ILS for runway 28. There we go. There it is. But I'm carrying plates for every other airfield that I might be passing on the way. A few things that we might want to check that are perhaps gotchas. I use Skydemon to provide me with traffic information, which is coming from a semi-installed Pilot Aware, and I get warnings through my Bluetooth headphones, but just occasionally they don't connect, so it's worth making sure that the sound is working. And that's not too hard. We go to the settings at the top left, we go to navigation options, scroll down a bit, we get a voice, and click on one of the voices.
The name is Karen. This is an example of how I will sound.
So now I know that I can hear the voice. The other thing that is worth making sure we've got right, particularly if we're using Skydemon for NOTAMs, is what the flight rules that Skydemon thinks the flight is going to be under are. And we can do that by clicking on at the top middle of the screen. We've got the little box, the distance box that says 479 nautical miles, 3 hours 9 minutes. If I click on that, I get to flight details. And flight rules here, I've got mixed. You can be VFR, IFR, or mixed. Don't leave that VFR because you won't get all the IFR NOTAMs, and you would want those. Although clearly, if you're on an IFR flight, there are other places you can get NOTAMs from as well. Okay, so that's just a little look at Skydemon. Most of you will probably know that. So let's have a look at my workflow for flights. These are flights that we're going to do within the controlled airspace system. So I'll talk a little later about flights that are outside controlled airspace, because that's a little bit different. So generally I start on the PC. This is where I'll look at weather and NOTAMs and so on, and my route. And if we're going somewhere inside controlled airspace, I'll start with AutoRouter. AutoRouter generates the route for me, and I can send that both to Skydemon, I'll show you how to do that, and to the GTN. I can put it on the SD card that's going to plug into the GTN. So that means that on both the moving map displays that I've got exactly the same route, and it was really easy for me to get it there. I do it on my PC to get into Skydemon, and I do it on my PC to get it on the SD card that's going to the GTN. Skydemon loads it up into its cloud, and from there it goes automatically both onto my iPad, and as it happens, I usually fly with it on my phone as well, because that's a free backup. So now I've got 3 different systems, all of which have the same route on them. I plug the SD card into the GTN 750, and we'll see how to load that up in a moment. And then all those things make sure that I've got up-to-date data, approach plates, the AIPs, and NOTAMs as well. So that's the route. So let's have a quick look at using AutoRouter. Some of you will be extremely familiar with this. Let's have a look at AutoRouter. So we do this on my PC. We just put autorouter.aero, and when we log in, here's the home screen, which is previous routes that I've done. Any flight plans we've got active can be shown as well, and we've got some definitions of some aircraft. Here's the Mooney. I'm going to put a new route in, and we're going to go from Cambridge to Nuremberg, and we'll go next week, late in the morning. I click up. There are some things I can do with advanced parameters. I can put some flyby waypoints in to try and force a particular route out of it, and I can look at weather. But let's just do the simple version. We'll click auto route, and what's going to happen now is it's going to try a number of different routes and test them against the Eurocontrol computers to see which ones work and will be acceptable. It'll then recommend the best one. So we'll give it a minute or so while we watch that. It's sometimes quite fun to see. So the different colours are related to whether we're IFR or VFR or on an arrival or a departure. So here's a route with a bit of VFR at the end. There's a VFR to start. So it's trying different routes, trying to find ones that are better than the previous one. There we go, after 2 minutes we've got some routes. What have we got? 469 miles, IFR departure to an IFR standard arrival. Looks pretty much the best route. There's a couple that are slightly less. We've got a 463 down here, IFR to IFR, but chances are we're going to get a standard arrival when we arrive anyway. So we'll take that. We hit continue. It'll parse that again, and now we can put some more details in. We can add an alternate. So Stuttgart could be our alternate, for example. We can put the amount of fuel we've got in the mass and balance and so on. Now, here's a key part, the briefing information that we need. So it'll give us the flight plan that it's going to produce. But down here, we've got all the things that we want it to send us about this route. And the two really important ones on this are the Skydemon flight plan here and the Garmin flight plan for a GTN. And that means that we will get flight plans emailed to us, which we can then save and load into the iPad and load into the GTN. So by hitting File Flight Plan, all that will happen. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to file an actual flight plan, but I've got one that I did earlier and flew, and we'll use that in the next part. Right, so having got the flight plan into AutoRouter, we can try the AutoRouter Telegram interface. One really neat feature of AutoRouter is the Telegram interface. Telegram is a communications app, rather like WhatsApp, and we can see here the result of having filed a flight plan. Because I've got the Telegram app associated with my AutoRouter account, it sent me a message saying that I filed the flight plan to Nuremberg. This is when it happened. It also includes the briefing packs with that, and Telegram I can get on my PC or my phone, whatever sort, or my iPad, so it makes it very flexible. If we look at the commands that Telegram will take, we can manage the whole flight plan. We can cancel it, we can move it, we can look for improvements. We can also get information from it about the airport, AIP plates, rain radar. So let's go to the bottom here and have a look at that. So for example, if I type radar, then it will send me a picture of the weather radar. if I ask for a Grammet between Nuremberg and Cambridge, it'll take a little while, and then it will go get that. There we go. And that's very convenient because we can be doing that from the aeroplane without having to call up people or anything like that. Okay, so we've got our flight plans. They're on the PC and we need to get them into Skydemon and the iPad. So I've saved the various things that come from Autorouter into a folder. I've got a folder called Trick Kits, and in that one called Nuremberg. And here's my flight plan for Skydemon, EGSC to EDDN, and also I've got Cambridge to Nuremberg GFP, which is the Garmin flight plan, which I'm going to put onto the SD card, which is going to get put into the GTN 750. So let's click on the Skydemon one. And here we go, we're open in Skydemon. So now, there's my flight plan on my PC, and here's the route. So I can now use that, and I can make sure I'm comfortable with it. If I go to the route and save, it will save this file into my private Skydemon cloud, and I can then switch to the iPad and open that file. There we go, Cambridge to Nuremberg. I can load it up like that. There it is. I can also transfer the flight plan to a GTN SD card. Now these are a bit tricky because you can't just take a standard SD card and stick it into a GTN. That doesn't seem to work. But if you clone the your GTN SD card, then using Win32 Disk Imager or something like that, then that does work. You need you can load up your current JEP data using Jepson Data Manager, as you would normally do. And if you put a folder called FPL on that card, then put your GFP flight plans in that folder, and then they're available to the GTN. Let's have a look at how that works. When we get to the airfield and we're strapped in, we've got the engine started, it's time to load the flight plan onto the GTN. It's on the SD card that we've plugged into the GTN, which has also brought on our latest JEP data, which is good. So all we have to do is go to Flight Plan and then hit the menu button, go to the catalogue, which has got the list of flight plans that are already stored on the internals of the GTN. Hit menu again, and if there are some flight plans on the SD card, we'll have this import button here. So hit that, and here we go, Cambridge to Nuremberg. And we've got our list of waypoints, Cambridge, Adnan, Clacton, Mokbu, Conan, which we can compare with those on the iPad if we want to. Activate that, and the flight plan is stored in the GTN. Okay, so one of the things I find when we're flying with that, we've now got the flight plan in the GTN, which we can fly, the autopilot will fly it. We've got the same flight plan in the iPad, which is useful. But as we all know, we very rarely get to fly that route. And now we've got the problem, air traffic say go somewhere. And the question is, how do we cope with that, particularly if we're trying to manage the two different systems? So let's have a look at that. So here we are, we've taken off from Cambridge and we've climbed up to 5,000 feet on the way to Nuremberg, and we're going to Adnan initially, and we're still at this stage outside controlled airspace. One of the things I rather like about this setup is that Skydemon is very good at showing me VFR where we are. So if I'm in VFR mode, I've got a good indication of the airspace, and I can click on it and bring up the details of the airspace. And at the bottom of the screen, it's showing me the vertical as well. And it's better than the GTN from this point of view, because the GTN pretty much assumes that we've got the right to be in any airspace. Now, the next useful thing that I find of this setup is maybe air traffic are going to, well, we're very unlikely to fly the route as briefed, as we filed. So maybe air traffic are going to give me a direct go-to. So they call me up and they give me a go-to Copal rather. I have no idea where Copal is, so I asked them to spell it. They spell it for me. I can find that in the GTN and do a direct, but I don't really know where to put it in my flight plan. On the other hand, if I hit the little search button here on the iPad, I can pull up a line like that, a screen like that. I can type in Copal. There we go, Copal. It's 37 miles away. It's an Airways reporting point. I click on that, and I can do an insert in route, and it suggests that we put it between Clacton and Mockbu. So now I know where it is. So I can insert that in the route, and if I do that again, it's now in my route, and I can decide to take a shortcut to it. So now I'm going direct to Copal from here. I can go to the GTN now and go direct, correction, come back from that. I can call up my flight plan by clicking on this little bar here, and I can go to Mockbu. I know it's Copal is before Mockbu, and I can insert before. And then I can go to it. So now on both things, we've put the change, and so now I'm going to Copal, but I've inserted into the route without having to know where it was in the first place. Back to the iPad with Skydemon, and when we get to controlled airspace, maybe we've got to climb up a bit into controlled airspace, but then I can switch to IFR mode, or Airways mode, which will take away the pictures of the airspace. Okay, so lastly, let's talk a little bit about the arrival. So here we are on the way into Erlangen. We're just approaching Urtis, and we're given, check that, okay, we're given an Urtis arrival, Urtis 2 Tango arrival, so we can load that into the GTN by hitting proc, and then the arrival. There it is, Urtis 2 Tango, transition via Urtis, so we load that arrival. So we're going ERTIs. Now note we've still got this point we had previously in the flight plan, so we'll just remove that. Okay, so direct ERTIs, and then it's Dodas, Erlangen and Nuremberg. And we need to add our approach, which is the ILS 428. Transition via Erlangen in this case, and we can load that approach. So now we of course check these against the plates. On the iPad, a little bit different. We can't put the arrival in, we don't have that, but we have previously loaded up all the AIPs, and what we can do is touch on the airfields button, and then normally that would get us here. So we can choose Nuremberg, we can choose instrument plates, and then for runway 28 we've got the ILS, and if we click on the georeference plate, either get the plate up like this so we can read it, or if we click on the little blue symbol to the right of the name, it will put the plate georeferenced on our map. We can blow that up a bit, and actually I have rubber banded the route to Erlangen, so we can remove that waypoint if you want, or leave it as it is. And what are my views on the use of jet plates versus AIP plates? Well, I don't do enough flying to justify the Jeppesen prices, I think. So I have other ways of doing this. And the AIP plates, I think, are good backups. Right, thank you for that. Craig?
Okay, thank you, Paul. Let me see if I can share my...
Sorry, Paul.
Yeah.
I couldn't work out how to make a chat thing. Can I just make one observation about what you said? I mean, your workflow is exactly the same as mine. Perfect. The only tiny little thing that I'd add is you spent a long time getting a whole load of flight plans that also had VFR segments. You can specify to Autorouter that you want IFR only, and then it takes much less time.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. Good. Anybody else got any thoughts or suggestions or improvements? Because I don't claim this is the best way to do it. I just claim it's the way I do it. Oh, what Ralph says, what plates are you actually using? You were a bit cryptic. Yes, I am being a bit cryptic. There are other plates accessible. Craig, over to you, I think.
Okay, thank you. Let me know if you see the PowerPoint. I'm getting this screen. Yeah. Paul, can you see that okay? Oh, sorry. Yes, great. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, Paul shared his experiences. I'm going to just share my personal experiences of ForeFlight, and then using Garmin Pilot. I actually have Skydemon, ForeFlight, and Garmin Pilot on my iPad, and I use them for different things. So I use Garmin Pilot mainly to do a lot of the IFR planning, as I'll show you in the videos. ForeFlight for IFR flying, and Skydemon for VFR flying. But yeah, I learned some useful tips from Paul there. So what you'll see is a short video I recorded on my iPad of the workflow that I use in ForeFlight. And then I've got a recording actually off ForeFlight's website, because I don't have a great simulator set up like Paul, and I found a lovely little video that captured the point.
Sorry, before you press the button, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Because I've realised I forgot to do it, and my apologies for why some of that was a bit quiet. Have you selected the use computer sound?
I did.
Excellent. Then it will be better. It will be better for you.
Well, let's see. Yeah, so it may go a bit quieter and a bit louder, and I do apologise that it's, recording off an iPad, it's actually capturing my voice. And then when I was using the videos off YouTube, they're obviously a lot louder. So just a little bit about me first. Not been flying anywhere near as long as Paul since 2007. I got my competency-based instrument rating in 2018. My furthest flight that I've done in one go is from Wellesbourne near Warwick in the Midlands across to Lozenge down in Croatia, which was nearly 5 hours. And yeah, it was a fair old time for the bladder, that's for sure. I've flown about over 400 hours so far, some for business, mainly for pleasure. So I'm a novice when it comes to flying compared to some of the colleagues on this call. So my personal setup, I've got the larger iPad, the 12.9-inch 4th generation. I'm very lucky to have Flightstream 510, which gives automatic synchronization at all times between the iPad and the aircraft. And I fly a PA46 Malibu Matrix, which has got 2 GTM 650s and an Avidyne, 2 screens, a primary and a multifunctional. So my personal workflow, not a million miles that different from Paul's. So I start there the night before usually, or a few nights before if I'm filing a flight plan. I've got my iPad. I use tools like Windy to check the weather a few days out, just to make sure it's flyable. As I get closer to the day and in the morning, I'll use AeroWeather, which is an app that gives me decoded METARs and TAFs. And then with FloorFlight on the ground, it's connecting to the FloorFlight solutions that they offer, and we'll see that in a minute. And I've got Jeppesen plates that I've installed. As you'll see in the demo, they're slightly expired because I haven't been flying for a while, but now hopefully that will change. I'm fortunate in the air that I've got the Goltzy ADL 180 Connect system, and so that gives me in-flight the weather radar with all the notices and warnings about delay. I use Flightstream, which connects through to the primary GTN, and from that primary GTN, that syncs out to the secondary GTN and the Avidyne. So this second thing is just very quickly, it's about a 4-minute video I recorded, followed by a 2-minute video from FloorFlight, which just shows my flow. If it's a bit quiet, please do turn the volume up on your computer for the first one. Hopefully this will work. So in FloorFlight, as I showed, that's one of my main apps. When I'm going on any flight, I just go straight down to the flights, select a new flight. Let's say I'm going to do that, let's say Friday morning at, let's say 10 o'clock, Zulu, and so I'll put that as my departure time. And my departure, I'm coming from Coventry, let's say it's a nice little flight to Cannes, and let me say I'm looking at an alternative of, let's say somewhere like Nice, which I know that's nearby. FloorFlight can find all the various alternatives for you, and you can put in the criteria for that. Select my aircraft, so various aircraft, some are dreams, some are reality, so that's my PA46, the various performance profile, select the flight rules, IFR for this flight, and then when you press the routes button, you can change the various settings. So I don't want to go higher than say 18,000 feet because I don't have to wear a face mask. IFR, include any particular waypoints, so I want to go via Daventry or whatever. So FloorFlight will then connect and find various routes, and it tells you whether they're Eurocontrol valid, and you can just pick the route that seems most suitable, updates your altitude accordingly, and then it gives you a little visual representation of your flight. So there's 2 people that are going on this flight. I always select maximum fuel, and because it's got the weight and balance preloaded, it always makes sure that you fit within the weight and balance of the aircraft. Puts that all in for you. Even gives you information about the FBO, and that's it really. That's ready to file. Just simply click proceed to file. Again, you can look down this, checking that the aircraft characteristics are all set correctly, the flight rules, departure, destination, everything that you need, just make sure they're all there. And then when you go file, it says you definitely want to do this, and you click file. And there it is. The flight plan is filed, and you're good to go from a flight planning point of view, and you can amend it, make various changes, or you can just simply cancel it if you're not planning on making the flight. And then the other great thing I love about ForeFlight is I can get the briefing, so it works out for the time, estimated off-block time. It does a nice little grommet for me, gives me variance, turbulence, and severe weather. Gives me all the METARs and TAFs across the whole route. Then it tells me the various NOTAMs. All the information I need is all there in one place, and so I'm good to go from a flying perspective. I then simply move this over to the map, and it loads it the whole route in there for me. I can have another visual check. Does that look okay? Again, look at flight plan. Because that route already had an arrival in it, it's included that arrival automatically. It'd be unlikely, but at this early stage I can say, right, I'm going to be looking at the RMP approach. I want to go via NECIP, and it can add that to the route for me, but normally I would do that in the flight. And that's it. And then the other good thing about ForeFlight is it has this packing, so you can pack everything just to make sure that when you disconnect from your home Wi-Fi or when you're in the air, that it's got everything it needs for the whole route. And I think my charts are a little bit out of date, but for the route that you're going to, it creates a binder for you for that various routes, and you can have a look at the approaches or the arrivals that you plan to take. So it's all in one place, and again, if you need to, as you're coming in, you can put that onto the map, and you can visualize yourself. Always helps with situational awareness. And so from my personal perspective, I find just within a few minutes and a few clicks, I've got the whole route planned, and I'm all good to go straight into the air. So that's the flight planning at home on my iPad. And when I get to the aircraft, this is where I use the Connect system, and that I bought from Garmin. This is a ForeFlight video, so the volume may be a little bit louder, so you may want to click it down a little bit.
ForeFlight's Connect platform gives pilots flying with Garmin avionics a more efficient and enjoyable experience so you can focus on flying. ForeFlight Mobile connects to Garmin avionics via the Flightstream 110 and 210, Garmin's Bluetooth wireless gateway, which makes everything from pre-flight planning to in-flight rerouting easier. ForeFlight Mobile receives ADS-B weather and traffic, GPS position data, and AHARS for backup attitude views from your Garmin panel. And now you can take advantage of two-way flight plan transfer between ForeFlight Mobile and Garmin GTN and GNS navigators, a capability that saves you time and gets you in the air faster. Before heading out to the plane, use ForeFlight Web for a full-screen desktop experience to plan your route. ForeFlight Sync platform automatically sends your web flight planning activity to your iPad. ForeFlight Mobile makes creating complex routes with SID, STAR, and approach waypoints easy and intuitive. The ability to transfer that complex route to your Garmin navigator means you don't have to waste time recreating it, sitting in the airplane, on the ground, engine running. Time-critical missions like search and rescue also benefit from quickly loading a SAR pattern into the panel mount GPS. When you get to the plane, simply pair your device to your Garmin Flightstream. Your iPad is ready to wirelessly program the route into your Garmin navigator in a matter of seconds. When plans change en route or you need to divert, the combination of ForeFlight and Flightstream allows you or your co-pilot to quickly and easily modify your route. Information flows both ways. Route changes made on the Garmin navigator can be automatically received by ForeFlight. You can also view a route in the panel from the Connect status page in More Devices, along with additional information about the flight stream and the data being received from it. ForeFlight Connect with Garmin just works. saving you time and giving you peace of mind so you can focus on flying. Learn more at forflight.com/connect.
And so that's for ForeFlight, really, just a very, very quick step through. And when I'm in the aircraft, if I get a diversion, I'll normally select it on my iPad. You get direct routing or whatever, and automatically that syncs across to the GTNs in the aircraft. If I did it in the aircraft, it would sync across to the iPad. If I've got the ADL Connect and I want to route around weather, that's on there as well on my iPad. And if you get to hold a position, again, you can select that either on the iPad or on the GTN, and the two are kept constantly in sync. So that was ForeFlight, and I know Wolfgang's on this call, and if you've got a lot of questions, I'm sure Wolfgang will be able to help you. ForeFlight typically costs around 95 to 270 euros for an annual subscription, depending what the plan you've got. But I know Wolfgang got me a really good discount for my first year, which I was very grateful for.
Craig, there's a couple of questions that have been posed. Good time to take them, I think. Chris Bishop asks, a minor question, the Pro 12.9-inch iPad is a lovely device, but quite large in the cockpit. How and where do you mount it?
Yeah, I actually have it on my lap. I'm almost brave enough to go completely paperless. So I've got the iPad with the Apple Pencil, and so when you get in radio calls, I use a scratch pad on ForeFlight or on Garmin Pilot. But yeah, I just rest it on my lap. I have tried to put it on the window or on, well, you can't really put it on the yoke. It's just a bit too big, so I just rest it on my lap. I am aware that that does create a slight risk that if it slides off and you get distracted, but you know, I've been flying for a number of years now and it's created no issues for me.
Okay, and there was a question from Colin as to which version of ForeFlight do you have to get automatic fuel and weight and balance calculations?
Wolfgang may be able to answer that if he's on. I've got the full performance plus one, but I think it's the intermediate one. But if Wolfgang's not there, then I'm happy to Google that and come back.
Okay. Chris Bishop makes an observation that he thinks there's a significant bug in ForeFlight. The depiction of the base controlled airspace across Europe defined by a flight level is incorrectly shown as MSL, which is a good observation. And then we've got a couple of other things that I'll come to after you've talked about Garmin Pilot, I think. So if you want to go ahead on that one?
Okay, great, and it's the same setup. So me on my iPad, a little bit quiet, so please turn it up. And then I found a nice little video on YouTube of a gentleman in his aircraft doing a synchronization. So the setup is the same.
Yeah, so can I answer the question regarding weight and balance shortly?
Yeah, you can answer it now if you want. Yeah, I've got no issue with
that. I was muted, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so the weight and balance is at the moment is separate in the app available. And weight and balance in the flight planning was enabled to business accounts recently. So I think it was November. And so hopefully later this year, you will get that flight plan, weight and balance planning also in the flight planning, yeah, and for, yeah, I think for Performance Plus accounts.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Wolfgang. Okay.
The setup with Garmin Pilot.
Sorry if this is a bit quiet, you may need to turn it up.
ForeFlight. Garmin Pilot, similar to ForeFlight, they have a choice of base maps. I don't really find these quite as appealing as I do with the ForeFlight ones. But the area I do like much better in ForeFlight is trip planning as we go through it. So we add a trip. Again, I've added in the pilot and command and all the aircraft information already. So this is an IFR flight in PA46 TFAM departing, and it's quite intuitive. You can just start typing a name and it'll work out. It's Coventry, flying, let's say again, going Friday at 10 o'clock. Destination to Cannes. Just like in ForeFlight, it gives you recommendations for alternatives. I always drop down first and just make sure I've got the right cruise, because that'll mean you'll have to validate it if you change that later. So I'll go for normal cruise, not to stress the aircraft out. And you go to, at this point I normally do a mass and balance, which I find extremely useful in Garmin Pilot. It's just a much powerful visual than what I found in any other product at all. Again, I loaded a lot of this and set it all up in advance. So I might have a bit of luggage that goes in front. I put myself as a pilot. My partner normally sits alongside me. I'll have my flight bag in the center area. My daughter will sit in the rear seats, and I might have, a couple of bags of luggage that we're taking along for the flight. And as you can quickly see from the envelope, we've exceeded our takeoff. The centre of gravity is too far forward, and that's really great. And you have all the various options. You can have the 30-minute, 45-minute or 60-minute, depending on whether it's VFR or IFR. I always select maximum in the range. And so it's telling me there 101 gallons is probably the maximum that you'd want. I click done, and it's done that for me. I then go back to the form. I select free person. This is a habit that you get into, selecting all that information, and then when you go in and you select the auto route, it's brought the information across. Again, I can change the flight levels I want to go to, and again you can change the whether it's an IZY routing. So once all that's been done, you can manually enter it. You click the auto route button, gives you a visual demonstration as it's calculating away. What I find in Garmin Pilot is, even though the output is almost identical to 4Flight, it does seem to take a little bit longer than 4Flight, and it does, as it's going through the process, kind of drip feed them to you. So you do have to, sometimes I'll set this off running and I'll go do something else for a little while and then come back. So it's not a massive amount of time, but as you can see, it's going through all the directs, all the networks, the Eurocontrol rules, and it starts to recommend, and it picks the best time based on the best route based on time, and it will try and prefer IFR. And you can see there, IFR to VFR is saying will be 5 minutes quicker than an IFR to a start, and that would make sense because of the IFR routing. But just to be similar to the one that we did before, I'm going to select the IFR to start with the Abdul arrival. I'll select that one. And the great thing about Garmin Pilot is its ability at this point to edit the route and do different changes. I normally leave that exactly as it is. Sometimes I'll select it so I can copy it and paste it into Skydemon or 4Flight or another tool, or email to somebody. It then does final checks on your route before confirming if it's a valid Eurocontrol route or not. And what you're looking for is, when that's all done, it is validated at the top. And you can see there, it went through, it said not validated, and it's now having a look. Does everything in that look correct? The time, the route, the aircraft, the weight and balance, and all the information. And once you're happy and it says validated, you can then go and select the file button and file that flight plan. So we'll click file. It says do you fully agree, and we go yes. And you can see at the top there's some great information, a summary of the distance, the required fuel, the time en route. You've got a great tailwind, that'd be a nice 30-knot tailwind for a flight. And then once it's done, it tells you there clearly that your flight plan has been filed, and it'll normally drop you an email as well with the route. Should you have problems, you can change it and delay that. You can bring it forward again, or you can just cancel it. You do need a reason though. Don't know if anyone actually reads this, but plan changes, and then you cancel the trip. And it's easy as that. And the other thing I like, at the bottom there, it gives you all this information on customs, immigration. You can see the nav log, the brief. I really like the brief in Garmin Pilot. It's probably a little bit long. I won't be surprised if this is over 60 pages long. So if you do accidentally print that out, that tends to be quite a bit of paper that it requires. But it's a really a great brief. I really like the grommet on this. I find it much more visually appealing, just easy to understand. But I still use Telegraph to do the grommets as I go to the flight. So that'll take a little while, and it retrieve the briefing, and you can refresh that as you get closer and closer to your time. So you know, within a few minutes, in Garmin Pilot, just like with ForeFlight, we've been able to set the origin, the destination, the alternates, check our mass, our weight and balance, and file that, and obtain a full briefing ready for the flight. It looks like it's taking a little while, so I may come back to this. Give it a few more seconds. With the ForeFlight, you'll send it across. Here's the activate button, but let's just have a look at this in view screen. So you can see it's a rich briefing pack here, 73 pages of information. I do like this. This nav log, it prints out this plug for you. Good briefing, so you can see the route. And again, that grommet is much more than what we're used to, so you can see any weather and icing on the route. Gives you some skew diagrams, which are handy. And then all the usual, it's just pages and pages then of METARs and NOTAMs and TAFs for your entire route. So read that at your leisure. And then when you click activate, it'll drop it across into the map, and you're good to go. If you click on here at the top, you can quickly see origin, your en route, and all the airways, which obviously you can expand if you wanted to see the waypoints in that airways. And as we'll see in a minute, you can connect that again through Flightstream into the aircraft, and it works really well. A few other things, just like in ForeFlight, you can have a look at charts. You can say, okay, what's my destination? Let me have a look at, I don't know, let's find let's try the RMP 435, and you can see that. And again, you can put that onto the map and have a look at that as you overfly it, just like in ForeFlight. So it gives you that ability to overlay charts to give an extra bit of situational awareness. And again, just like ForeFlight, you can overlay the ADL Connect information. I also like the checklist, and here I have a similar one set up in ForeFlight, and I go through and as I check all the items off my checklist, it goes through. And some of the things I like about this is when you go through all your checklist, it gets to a certain point and it might say, I'll actually open up the taxiway for you, and as you're going through checking it all, and you're ready then for taxiing, it'll say, do you want me to open safe taxi, which I find is quite a good little shortcut. Then you're like, okay, ready. Not quite sure what that is there, but it'll open up for Coventry, is that where you're going? Okay, and then we just cleared it all. So yeah, it's different. There's a reason I own Skydemon, ForeFlight and Garmin Pilot. It's because I love the planning in Garmin Pilot, pre-flight. I love the ability to be able to connect to the aircraft to update the databases. At the minute, Garmin's not opened that up, so you can't do that with anybody else. You can only do it with Garmin. And so to keep the databases updated in the avionics in the aircraft, I do use Garmin Pilot for that, and I'll connect through devices and sync. But yeah, both really powerful and useful tools.
Then I've got just one short video now on the Garmin Pilot synchronizing. You can do the database updates as well as flight planning. So if you did crank up the volume, you may want to just turn it down a little bit, because this should be just normal volume. Okay.
Today I'm going to show you a little demo on the Garmin Flightstream 510. This SD card actually has a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chip on board. So you can use it actually like an SD card where you're plugging it into your PC, loading databases, and putting it back into your navigator. But with this Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chip, it allows some really interesting features. So the first thing I'll demonstrate is the database update feature of the Flightstream 510. When you first boot up your GTN navigator, whether it's a 750 or a 650, it'll give you a message here, connect to the Flightstream Wi-Fi network. To do that, you go over to your iPad or iPhone or Android or whatever you're using, and you have to go to the Wi-Fi section and connect to the Flightstream 510. So I'll do that right here on this iPad. Now that it's connected, I get a message. It says, connected to portable device, open Garmin Pilot. So on my iPad, I'll bring up Garmin Pilot, and the transfer should, well, the actual transfer is not going to happen automatically, but you can see right here that this navigation database was found. To begin the update, we hit the start button on the GTN 750. As you can see, the database transfer is in progress. It's complete. And it's simple as that to do the database transfer. And if you have anything else, like a Garmin G500 connected, the databases will transfer from the 750 to the flight deck. The other big feature of the Flightstream 510 is the flight plan transfer. You could transfer back and forth from a mobile device to the GTN navigator, or from the GTN to the mobile device. So I'll show you, I'll choose a flight plan. I'll go to my catalog and just bring up a short flight plan and activate it. So when it's loaded up in the 750, you can see I automatically get a message, receive flight plan update, where I can ignore or activate. So I will activate, and all the Flightstream 510 transfers the flight plan from the 750 to the iDevice. Now I'll add another waypoint here. So I now have a different flight plan on my iPad, and I want to transfer it over the GTN 750, so we're going the other direction. I hit the connect button, and we'll send to the GTN 750. So I get a message indicator on the 750. Hit the 750, it says a flight plan is import. I can hit this, it tells me what is going to be imported, and I can either store it or activate it, or go back out and do nothing. So I'll activate it. Replace current active route. Okay. So now that other point that I initially added in the iPad is now in the GTN 750. So that's how the flight plan transfers work back and forth between a iPad or a mobile device and the GTN 750. The other thing the the Flightstream 510 can provide is AHRS information. If you have an AHRS source, right now I'm not flying, so I don't have any attitude information. But I have the G500, and the Flightstream 510 will take the G500 AHRS information and put it over here on my iPad. The one last item that the Flightstream 510 can do is, if you have a ADS-B source like a GTX 345 or a GDL 88, when paired with either of those products, the ADS-B traffic and the FISB weather can be displayed via Bluetooth on your mobile device as well.
Okay, and that's it really. So it's just two very quick demonstrations of my personal, I'm sure you'll have your own one, my personal experiences of using 4Flight and also of using Garmin Pilot, and similar to Skydemon as Paul.
Okay, thanks, Craig. A couple of questions. There were a couple around the relative merits of Garmin Pilot and 4Flight. Have you got a two-line summary on that, do you think?
So the main thing I like, as I touched on, you can only update the databases over the air in your GTNs with Garmin Pilot. That they must have restricted it, so 4Flight or Skydemon can't do that. But other than updating the databases, the others just flight planning and synchronization remains current. I just really like Garmin Pilot's planning. I really like 4Flight for IFR flying, and I really like Skydemon for VFR flying.
Okay. John Shannon asks about GARs and Gendex. How do you handle those?
You might have to elaborate what you mean by that. Sorry, I'm not as expert as others. What does he mean?
John, you want to drop in and expand?
Yes. I use a program I have done for quite a while, Rocket Route. It's an alternative to these flight planning systems. Rocket Route has the advantage that it automatically creates general aviation reports. It also automatically creates Gendex. And I find those very time consuming to do manually, but with Rocket Route, it all comes up automatically. And it's in a very considerable detail. It'll provide a Gendex that is tailored for, say, Guernsey and, sorry, not a Gendex, a GAR tailored for Guernsey, and another type for Jersey. So bloody irritating, really, that they have all these differences. And I think that Rocket Route also has one major advantage in that there is a person that you can call if you're, your automatically calculated route doesn't seem to verify. And that can happen, especially if you're going higher. I, for example, have had difficulties with Garmin Pilot in getting it to calculate a route at, say, flight level 250 or something. And the great thing about Rocket Route is that you've got a person you can call. He's, I think, in somewhere in Russia, probably, but they're very efficient. But my particular question is, how do people handle GARs and Gendex?
Oh, thanks, John. I understand your question now. Sorry, I just use online GAR, and it doesn't. I know Skydemon has an integration, but I just go direct onto the website. Go onto, I think it's onlinegar.com, and if I'm flying with my family, we're all preloaded. I'll just say Craig, Claire, Lily, to Nice, outbound and inbound. And if someone is coming along with me, another pilot, they can share with me without me being able to see their details. It securely connects in, so I can add them to my flight, but their personal data remains personal. That's what I think. So.
Okay. Paul Sodegar asks, any experiences from people on the call about combinations of weather and traffic on iPad, for example, goals and pilot aware? I've looked at that one, Paul. They both seem to want to act as Wi-Fi hubs, so they don't work very well. So what together, I think, and there might be a workaround, but I haven't worked it out yet. I'll probably stick with using different devices for the two things personally. So the iPad takes the traffic from the pilot wear, and I'd use my phone to do the goals.
Yeah, you're right. You've only got, one Wi-Fi device, one Bluetooth device. So I'm connecting to my ADL Connect for weather via Wi-Fi, and I'm connecting via the Flightstream to the GTNs over Bluetooth. But once you've used both of those frequencies, that's it. It's gone, isn't it?
Okay. Craig Collins says, "What's your strategy for backups, other devices and/or paper?" So I personally, my thing, I've got another electronic device. So I've got the GTM with everything on. I've got the iPad with everything on. I've got my phone with everything on, and then I've got some bits of paper as well. I tend to carry the approach plates for the places I'm actually going on paper because it's a free screen. I get another screen for nothing. But my diversions and such like are probably on the devices. To go completely paperless, and I have a bit of paper which I write things like weather down on, just because I still find it easier than trying to get it on a device with a finger, which doesn't work for me. Craig, what about you?
Well, there's definitely people on this call more expert than me. I'm trying to go completely digital. So, you know, I've got the backup of my iPad, my iPhone, and obviously the flight plans are in the aircraft as well. So you've got 4 or 5 instances of it, but I do print out the charts. I do like to have a chart in front of me as I'm doing the procedure, but, you know, I'd open it up for others because there's definitely a lot of experience on the call. Okay,
a couple of people have mentioned that Autorouter does excellent GARS and Gendex, so thank you for that. Lauren Schuler says if you use Autorouter on your iPad, you can directly open the Autorouter generated route in 4Flight or Garmin Pilot. Yeah, I'm sure you can. Okay. Colin says goals connect as a Wi-Fi client if another router yeah, okay. David Clarkson asks, have I found a way to display traffic from Garmin GTN to Skydemon? No, I haven't tried because we don't have traffic on our GTN. We take our traffic from somewhere else. Okay, that's all the questions I've got on chat. We've got an opportunity to throw the conversation open a bit more if anybody wants to leap in with a question or a comment, or maybe I do it differently.
I'll just go back to the GAR conversation. I'm a great believer. I liked Rocket Route. In fact, I started with Rocket Route in this game. The only problem with Rocket Route, which is probably still the gold standard, is the cost. So it's a lot more expensive, but then John is a very wealthy man, so it probably doesn't bother him. The other issue on cost is that even online GAR, I'm a really cheap guy. You have to pay for online GAR as well. So I've discovered a nice system in Holland, which is completely free, and it does all of the Gendex and GARs across Europe, even though it's a Dutch system. So it's very unlike the Dutch to give something away free, but they do. So that one works really well. Yeah, that's my input onto that subject.
Let me try. We did a little poll. We just took the three tools we've talked about and just asked which tool do you primarily use. If I launch that, there we go. Do people want to contribute? There are 50 or so of us on the call. Let's see how it comes out. Oh, that's quite interesting.
What's the answer?
We got 7 people who haven't yet. Let me give people a few more seconds. Okay, so I'll read it to you. I might be able to show it to you, but before I lose it. So 87% Skydemon, 24% 4Flight, 18% Garmin Pilot, and 2 people said something else.
I must be the other Rocket Route. I just wanted to say, I've used Rocket Route for quite a number of years now, and I really like it. One of the things they do, if you keep an eye on your email, generally around Christmas time, New Year, there's an email that comes out and offers a 25% discount. So it's not, when you get that every year, it's not more expensive, I think, than the others.
I guess there's, I mean, there are some cost issues here, aren't there? The route that I described is probably a somewhat lower cost than the routes that Craig described. Autoreader's free, Skydemon's 85 quid a year, using AIP plates is free. So that, you know, that's a relatively low cost route. The other things are a high cost. Craig, how much money are we talking about for the things you've described?
So yeah, so I have Garmin Pilot. So with the Europeans, that's 162 euros, £135. ForeFlight is £240, which is €270. Skydemon, as you say, online GAR is, I can't remember the price per submission, but that's relatively low. The biggest cost for me by far is the Jeppesen plates. I think they're something like £600 a year to get them on the iPad. And if I want to use the Garmin, if I want to use the Jeppesen plates on ForeFlight, I'll use them. And then if I want to use them on Garmin Pilot, I have to deactivate it on ForeFlight, go into Garmin Pilot and reactivate it. And then if I want to buy the plates for the aircraft as well on the Pilot Pack, I think that's something like £900. So yeah, Jeppesen plates are by far the most expensive.
Paul, is there a reason why you're being so coy about the other source of Jeppesen plates?
Yeah. Well, I will look carefully at the Navigraph plates.
I mean, if you can't afford Jeppesen and you're willing to download PDFs, you can't get it geolocated. But if you just want Jeppesen plates and you have the AIP plates for compliance reasons, then Navigraph costs almost nothing and has the whole world of jet plates. I think it's about €60 a year or something silly, and you've got bang up to date Jeppesen plates for the whole country, the whole world rather.
Yeah.
Just a comment on costs of jet plates. Another interesting feature of ForeFlight is that if you subscribe to a product like Jeppesen, VFR charts or something, you can, and then you change your mind a few weeks later, you get a sort of refund. So you can, for instance, if you were going to the States for a couple of weeks, you could stop your European jet subscription, subscribe to the US, and then when you come back, do the reverse process. So this seems rather a nice feature. The downside, I think, though, is that every time you make a change, you're resubscribing for another year. So long as you plan to fly for at least another year, it's a very cost-effective way of sort of getting the plates for Jeppesen for another. So it's quite a nice feature, I think, but not for your last year of flying.
Yeah. Okay, what have we got? We've got does the Flightstream Wi-Fi interfere with the Goals Wi-Fi? Says John Shannon. It shouldn't do. The technology should be better than that.
Oh, so yeah. So what happens is, just to be clear, so when you use Flightstream to update the databases in the GTN, that's when it uses Wi-Fi. But in the flight, it flips over to Bluetooth. So it stops using Wi-Fi once it's updated the databases. So, yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Is there any other comment or question? Anybody want to say anything else?
Actually, I had one interesting experience. I'm a big fan of ForeFlight, but I also use Skydemon because I love the airspace depiction. That's far better than... and I had an interesting experience. So in flight, I actually run ForeFlight and Skydemon together. And I discovered that's actually a really good idea. On one occasion, I was flying a few hundred feet below the base of controlled airspace in the region of Daventry, and using Skydemon to stay out of controlled airspace. Then I flipped over to ForeFlight. There's a nice four-finger gesture on the iPad, so you can just flip seamlessly between them. And ForeFlight told me that was inside controlled airspace. So obviously I didn't have a clearance, so that suddenly got my attention. But after checking back with Skydemon, it was fine. I discovered the problem is that on ForeFlight, there's a pretty nasty bug, which is that controlled airspace defined by flight level is depicted as mean sea level, not as a flight level. So this was a high pressure day. So it told me I was in controlled airspace when I wasn't, but I could imagine a low pressure day, if you were using ForeFlight to stay outside controlled airspace, it could actually cause an incursion. And that seems to be such a fundamental aspect of any, moving map GPS display, is to telling you where controlled airspace is. So, I love ForeFlight, and the ForeFlight team, I reported this bug a year, 18 months ago, and they've been super responsive. They've sorted all kinds of other things, but for some reason, they've not fixed this bug. I've got a hypothesis, which may be wrong, but my hypothesis is this started out as US software where flight levels start at 18,000 feet. And maybe it's baked so deeply into the software that somehow fixing this in Europe, because it's not just in the UK, I checked other places in Europe, it's all over Europe. So just be sort of super careful with the base of controlled airspace. If it says mean sea level, check somewhere else in case it's a flight level. So it's a nasty bug. I wish they would sort it, because I love the product, and it just sort of leaves me with that little nagging doubt in the back of my mind, and I keep flipping back to Skydemon just to check.
Thanks. Hey Chris, can I ask, have you ever tried split screen, to have Skydemon on one half of the screen and say ForeFlight on the other?
Yeah, that was why I was asking about the 12.9-inch iPad, because I imagine having that in landscape mode and running them in split screen would be fantastic, because I've only got about 6 moving map GPSs in my aircraft, and I could do with 3 or 4 more, so I think I might try that.
I find, although you can put the georeference plates on the iPad and things, if I'm actually flying approach, my attention is wholly kept by the GTN. I'm not looking at the iPad at that point.
It shouldn't even be on the GTN, Paul. It should be on your primary flight display.
Well, it's there as well, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm the same as everybody. I think the ForeFlight is great. To me is a great tool for IFR. And you just wish it would work in VFR, but it doesn't. And there's a bug as well. I don't know whether they fixed it, because I haven't used it for about a year, but there was a definite problem with the VFR representations and airspace representations in the north of England, particularly. So we're stuck with Skydemon for VFR, and either ForeFlight or a Garmin Pilot for IFR. And so we've got to have our screens on the aeroplane and 2 screens on our laps to get all the information that we really need. So sometimes somewhere someone is going to put them all 3 together and get them all working. There you go, Wolfgang. You've got to get that sorted.
I'm careful listening.
Okay, we're at our 90 minutes, which is what we said, almost exactly. So I think we seem to have run out of things to say. So I'm going to say thank you very much to everybody for joining us.
Thank you.
Let me propose a vote of thanks to both Paul and Craig for taking us through personal experiences, warts and all. That's been very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.